Masonic Lite podcast. This is Past Master Moyer calling in with my critique observations of episode 80. I believe this is probably the longest episode. Anyway, Mark Perlstein was the guest. Mark's a very interesting person, very, very detail-oriented. I very much enjoyed his explanation of what they do in Maryland, because it's a lot different than what we do in Pennsylvania. And even though he's a friend of Jack Harley, you know, I'll overlook that. Let's see, what else do I have here? Josh Lamberton, you had a couple opportunities to speak and you blew it again. And you're senior warden of your lodge. If you expect to go to the East, you better learn how to speak up. Jim Stevens, his lodge business brief, stay off tangent. I think all you birds on Masonic Lite podcast should learn to stay off tangent. Set the agenda and stick to it. And to finish up, Maris, I tip my hat to you. You finally said Effort Lodge number 665. Tim Dedman, you chimed in. I just saw you yesterday at Cigar Lodge. It sucks to be you now that dew season is coming up. And to close out, Maris, that stupid joke, and I've heard it a number of times from you because you're starting to repeat yourself over and over as you age. That joke about mice being made master masons and not coming back is not funny at all. Anyway, I'm headed to Milwaukee this weekend. Looking forward to listening to episode 81. And you guys, I'll be in touch. Bye.
From the new recording lair located deep beneath the Wine and Spirit store in Ephrata, Pennsylvania.
You're listening to the Masonic Lite podcast.
Studio 665 presents Masonic Lite podcast. This show is recorded by Masons, for Masons, and is for entertainment purposes only. And please, no wagering.
This podcast is not endorsed by any Grand Lodge, and the ridiculous ramblings of the hosts are their own. And now, here's your host.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Masonic Lite podcast.
Hi, everybody.
This is episode 84.
84.
84.
What? 84. What is that? Who is that strange voice I hear?
Who is that? Tonight's episode is brought to you by our Masonic Lite patrons. If you'd like to become a sponsor of our show, please visit www.patreon.com/Masonic Lite podcast, and for as little as $1 per month,
$1,
$1, you can help keep the lights on here in our studio. We'd also like to thank our show sponsors, the Smithton Inn and Weathered Vineyard, George J. Grove & Son, and D&S Cigars. On tonight's episode, we have a second episode on Masonic art. Tonight our guest will be artist Ryan Flynn. Also on tonight's episode, we'll be hearing a segment from the Secretary's Crypt, Jim Stevens, Michelle Snyder, the Masonic News with Jack Harley, and Final Thoughts with Larry Maris.
It's Walter Cronkite.
Or Walter Cronkite. In studio with us today are Larry Maris, Jack Harley, Josh Lamberton,
and Walter Cronkite.
And I'm Tim Dedman. Pete Ruggieri is sitting out tonight, serving a one-episode suspension from the Podcast Oversight Committee at an undisclosed location in Mexico.
Thank you, Mark Zuckerberg.
Yes. So we are under a court order to not mention much about this, but you may hear something about it a little later in the show.
Nice.
So, gentlemen, has anyone done anything of Masonic significance since our last broadcast? Josh.
Guess not.
Crickets.
Let's start with Josh.
We need a cricket sound effect. By the
Yeah,
way.
we had stated meeting and our past masters night.
And it was well attended, and you did a great job as worshipful master. I was glad to be in attendance at that.
One of the better past masters nights that I've seen in many different
Oh,
lodges.
stop
Really.
sucking up, Larry. Honest to
No,
God.
I'm serious. It was well done.
Yeah.
Well
I thought
done.
Josh did a great job.
Yeah,
Except they did leave a door open. But
that's okay.
I know. Larry, how about you?
Been at the stated meeting to see Josh in the East and go see Gridiron. Pretty much that was it.
Okay. Jack?
Well, we had stated meeting last night, and it went very well. I actually sat Perseverant, which I haven't done in I never sat Perseverant. But we had, I was telling you guys before the show started, we had our memorial service. Every October, we remember the brothers that have passed since the preceding memorial service. And it was at Perseverant, in the Perseverance chair, the table that they put out is right in front of us. And we have candles on the table and an apron and a sprig of acacia and the scroll, the whole funeral basically kit, if you will. And the lights were out and the candles were lit, and it just looked really beautiful. And I wished that I could take a picture of it, but I didn't think it would be appropriate to whip out the camera at that moment and do a selfie. But
You'd have probably gotten a letter from somebody.
Yeah, I'm sure I would have got finked on somewhere along the line. But it was really nice, and the officers did a nice job, and it was really good.
Great. Well, we at Eureka West Shore Lodge number 302 in Mechanicsburg had our stated meeting on a dreary, cold, rainy night Monday. Prior to that, we had 28 folks who donated blood at our blood drive, which was actually pretty good given the weather. We had a great program.
You had it on a meeting night?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's
brilliant.
brilliant.
We have it twice a year in June and October on meeting nights. And
what a great idea.
From 3 to 7. And so
it's a pity that I'll forget to suggest that to somebody.
Oh, it's great. We usually have great. We were in the high 30s last time, but given the weather, I thought 20. I think we had 28 was the number.
That's why you need to move to the home, Jack.
I know. I got the application, dude. I'm online.
Our program was great. You all, as listeners, have actually heard the program that was presented there. It was Brother Ed Stum talking about his history with the Masonic fraternity. Again, very well received for many of the brethren. It was the first time they had heard that, and it was well received. We also did our 25-year service emblems, presented Bibles to recently raised Master Masons, and really significant, we had a presentation to 4 brethren of the Lewis jewel. And for those of you that aren't familiar with that, it is a jewel that can be worn by the son of a Mason. We had one brother who had 4 bars on his Lewis jewel, which meant he's a Mason, his father's a Mason, his grandfather was a Mason, and his great-grandfather was a Mason. And that jewel has their date of initiation on it as well. So that was quite impressive and a really enjoyable night and a great meeting.
Cool.
So, all right. Well, let's take a short break, and then we'll be back with our brief conversation with Masonic artist Ryan Flynn.
Why choose George J. Grove & Sons for your next home improvement project? At George J. Grove & Sons, we've built our reputation on quality and trust for more than 50 years. From planning to materials to installation, George J. Grove promises a home improvement experience second to none. Whether your goal is reducing energy costs, decreasing maintenance, updating curb appeal, or simply increasing the value of your home, the George J. Grove team will recommend and provide solutions that stand the test of time. Call 717-393-0859 for an estimate or visit us at georgejgrove.com. Hey, we're welcoming our guest, Ryan Flynn, the Right Worshipful Brother, Ryan Flynn, who is the current District Deputy of Grand Education Officer for the Grand Lodge of New Hampshire. And
What? Wait, what?
Ryan also has a lot of experience.
New Hampshire has a Grand Lodge?
Yeah.
Me too.
Yes.
Got parents and everything.
It's a very good lodge.
You're now banned in New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Indiana. Anyway, welcome, Ryan. And I will say, this is your second appearance on our show.
Yeah, I didn't learn the first time, so I'm happy.
Exactly.
We don't get a lot of repeats.
No, we don't. Well, we
have a Pete, and then we have repeats.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, welcome, Ryan, and tell us a little bit about your business that you do and some of the things you've been doing lately.
My business. Well, thanks for having me again. I was just saying to you guys, I really like being on the show. You guys are a lot of fun. You talk about some really important stuff, but you do so in a way that it's pretty entertaining too. So I don't listen to a lot of podcasts religiously, but yours is one of the ones I actually listen to. So.
Oh man, that is just awesome.
Oh, you're such a
tell
suck up.
everybody I listen to it. You're doing a great job, but I actually listen to you guys. So
Nice.
So yeah, I've been fairly busy with my art. It kind of slowed down for a couple of years because I was mastering the lodge, and thankfully that's over. So I've been getting back into it and doing more Masonic works, paintings, and murals, and traveling, and it's been good. It's been real good.
Wait, did you say murals?
I did. My largest project I ever did to date, what happened last year down at Blackmer Lodge 127, which I'm now a member of, actually. But I worked with the guys there. They did a complete overhaul of their entire lodge building. And I did murals on the two long walls of the building. The lodge
I
room.
saw that it was going. You had like sort of faux recesses that you had artists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool. It took me seven months to plan it. Luckily, I had two awesome assistants down there, and they kind of prepped the walls for me. And I did this marathon painting session where I flew down on a Friday, and I think I painted. I did 3 16-hour days and one 8-hour day, and painted it in a long weekend.
Wow.
So
do you do a lot of that? Is that a core of your business, or is that sort of ancillary?
No, see,
I know you do a lot of patents and things like that.
I'm starting to do it a little bit more. I'm in talks with a lodge up here that's going to be doing something like that, and then there's rumors of a couple other lodges that want to do it. So I kind of have this interesting way I'm approaching being a Masonic artist, and that is I'm not doing it full time. There's a couple reasons behind that. One is I got a family, I got a good job, I love my job, and I get a good paycheck out of it. So saying no to that would be pretty hard. And the other part that really has held me back from just diving in is I'm at a place where I have enough work and I have the right clientele where people are reaching out to me saying, do what you want, we trust you. And it allows me to put as much time and effort in as I want while I do it. If I were to make this full time, I would be relying on my work to pay my bills, which means doing the artistic approach to these things where I'm taking my time planning things out and making it exactly what I want would not be beneficial to me because I don't make money doing that. So I would be forced to do more stuff that's cheap and would make more money out of it, but it wouldn't be what I want to do. So I'm purposely keeping this part-time right now. And it's been good. I've been having constant work lately. The amount of Masonic art and people are talking about it's been going up steadily. It's a pretty incredible time. But Blackmer was special. I knew the guys down there. They're some of the best Masons I've ever met. And, they flew me down to speak. And then while they were in there, you're like, hey, do you like this room? Yeah, it's nice. It was standard, wood panel walls. And, yeah, this is great. Yeah. And they're like, well, we want you to redo the whole thing. So they raised their dues, I believe. They had a couple of guys donate some money. They had a couple of carpenters and contractors in the lodge, and they went down. They gutted the place. They did this awesome thing where they removed the flat ceiling, put a barrel vault in it, painted it as dark black as possible, and then put a couple hundred LED lights poking through it. And they mapped out the night sky of the night when the lodge was formed.
Awesome.
So you kneel at that altar, you look up, it's a night sky. You can't see the barrel vault, and you're always taking your obligations underneath the night that the lodge was formed.
That's brilliant.
And then I went around the lodge, and I went crazy with symbolism. My ideas were I wanted there to be, your basic Masonic symbols that are easily identifiable for like the EAs and the guys who are just going in the craft. So, you see faith, hope, and charity and the working tools. And then next to them were these figures that would be representing different aspects of the craft. So, and it got deeper as you went around. So you'd have like charity. So I have the Good Samaritan is in there. So you can start looking at all of those, and it makes sense. And then I took it a step further, and I told the guys when I was designing it, I'm like, this is what I want to do. And their minds were blown. It was kind of cool. If you look at them deeper, there's these different hand gestures that are going, and they're pointing to each other, and they're all wearing very specific colors, because when you look at it from the top down, it actually forms a Kabbalic tree of life.
Wow.
So as you follow the hands and stuff, they form the Tyler sword. It was nuts. My wife was just kind of looking at me as she's watching TV, and I'm just scribbling notes down and researching. But it was pretty cool.
Wow.
I was pretty happy with it.
So in preparation for the show, I actually went on your website and looked at some of your work. I was really impressed with the painting Properly Prepared, I believe it's called.
Oh, Duly Prepared.
Duly Prepared.
The new one, the preparing room.
Yes.
Or the chamber of reflection, yeah.
Was that where this piece came from, or was this something else?
No, so it's funny. My viewpoints of Masonry have changed over the years. I joined in 2010, and I was like, I'm joining a charity. It's going to be awesome. We're going to do a lot of charity work. And I've gotten to the lodge, and I'm like, okay, guys, we're doing charity work. And then through some people, I got introduced to Masonic education, and I dove into that. So for like 5-6 years, all I was doing was reading every book that I can get put in front of me. And then through a couple of experiences that I had as master, I started, and I met a few brothers like Chuck Dunning. I started really looking at this like introspective way of looking at Freemasonry. And with me, I always had my sketchbook around me, and I was thinking about, all right, what's the most introspective part of the whole ordeal? I want to paint that. And I thought, well, actually the chamber is, because that's the only time you're actually thinking for yourself. Every part of our ritual, we're forcing schools of thought on you, and we're forcing you to think our way for the first time. But that one moment before you're going in, that's you. That's you and you alone. And I thought that would make an amazing painting. And I thought that moment when you're like at that moment where you're ready to be initiated, and that door opens up and they come to get you, I thought that was a really cool moment. So that's what I wanted to paint. So
it's an amazing painting.
And went to it.
Well, Tim, it's available for the low price of
$2,500. I think.
Yeah, let's fess up.
That's great. I wish I had $2,500 to. Okay, Larry. No, that's not Larry.
That's me. Sorry.
All right.
Tell you, Ryan, maybe I can stick my nose back in this show here, but one of the things, we're going to have John Bridegroom on the show, and I caught perhaps a Facebook conversation texting between you and John, and you talked about a renaissance in Masonic art, a new renaissance. And that led me to think that I wanted to have both you guys on the show. So would you tell me a little bit about that thought process?
Well, I wouldn't say a renaissance in Masonic art yet. I'd say that there's definitely a renaissance in Masonry. So I, for some stupid reason, am obsessed with the Renaissance. When I studied abroad, I got to learn about it in the place where it happened, and it kind of just sparked the interest. And for some stupid reason, I still read about it. I'm listening to an audio book on the Medicis right now, which for any of you who have a kid who needs to go to sleep and is having trouble catching some Z's, I highly recommend it. But no, if I were to teach, I consider myself, I'm not an expert. I don't have a doctorate or anything, but I'm fairly well educated in the Renaissance. And if I were to do a class about it, I think I wouldn't talk, if I did a week-long class about the Renaissance, I don't think I would talk about art until the third day. Because what we consider the Renaissance, when you think of Mikey, and Raphael, all the greats and stuff, they were kind of the reaction to what was happening. If you go back to, the early 1400s where things were really starting to turn, it was this all of a sudden romanticized ideal of wisdom that started getting things moving. People all of a sudden wanted to really learn about, the Greeks again, because they were available to them for the first time. They wanted to learn about the human condition more than just the fallback, you are God's creation, do what he says. Well, but we have this whole life on earth that we interact with. We want to learn about that. So if you think about what's going on in Masonry right now, it's almost identical. So we're entering this era of Freemasonry where education is starting to come to the forefront. And when I say that, I really make a sense to say this, because one of the things that I don't like hearing a lot of is people saying like, oh, the generation before us threw education out the door. Didn't happen that way. There was no three guys who said, oh, Manly P. Hall. No. The wonderful thing about Masonry is it's pliable. It can change with the times. When the guys came back from World War II, Masonry offered that aspect of Masonry, which is brotherhood, and that's what attracted to them, and that's what they needed. So Masonry was the tool to give them what they needed to continue as brothers. Now with our generation, or my generation, education seems to be the way things are going. So all of a sudden we're starting to see EAs reading Wilmshurst, EAs talking about Kabbalah and all this other stuff because they're really into it. And that's exactly what happened in the Renaissance. Now with the art, I started talking about this in 2012, where I was just saying, we need to boost this up, because if the art didn't happen in the Renaissance, we probably wouldn't be talking about it. We would just talk about like 6 group of guys who got together and learned some stuff. But because the art mirrored those, and because it's easy for people to identify with art, it stuck with us and became this movement. I mean, if you really start to think about it, the Renaissance was only about 100 people scattered across, a century and a half. But look what they did with the world. It was a bunch of rich guys who could afford all the books and use the money that they had to make sure artists captured what they were feeling. That's a really simplified version of it, but it is. I could get talking on that forever. But if you look at Masonry right now, we have more than 100 guys doing it, where we're getting together in study groups. We're starting to talk about this stuff. We're starting to take it on a level that's extremely serious. And now the arts are starting to creep in. So if 100 guys back then could do it, even though they were just ridiculously rich, if 100 guys back there can do it, why can't Masonry do it now and really turn this into a Masonic Renaissance? That's my elevator speech.
Okay, drop the mic. We're done here. Thank you very much for. Wow.
Let me ask Ryan, how would you and John construct a challenge? Now, John is going to be our guest.
John last week or next week?
John Bridegroom, who's going to be our guest
in 2 weeks
after Ryan in 2 weeks.
Right, that we recorded a half an hour ago, but he'll be our guest next week.
Yeah, but nobody.
Listen, I am an artist. I am a diva. You go with my schedule. Okay. I need my orange M&Ms.
How would you construct a challenge to Freemasons and to Grand Lodges all over the world? How are you going to go about doing that?
So it's interesting. Like, it's already happening in the Blue Lodges. It is. It's happening slowly, but it's building. And when I started really talking about Masonic art 5 years ago was when I did a presentation, and all of a sudden everybody wanted me to come out and do it. One of the things I would say at the end of it is like, name 5 Masonic artists, and people would be still. They wouldn't. Well, you, Ryan, and okay, tell me someone else. And that's changed, and that's the really cool part. And the really cool thing that I notice is when I travel around the country and I talk about it, I'm hearing different names. So there's these artists who are coming up. Like there's a couple of brothers down south who are doing these insane murals, and I wrote his name down, and I didn't bring my sheet in here because I'm very organized. Yeah.
Nobody mentioned me with my monkey.
I was going to say the listeners can't hear, but Pete just took the monkey off the wall.
Reminds me of Whistler, I believe. Yeah.
Whistler's monkey. Yeah.
That's your new title for that, by the way. But no, if you start going around, you're starting to see these artists coming up. And luckily, some of these guys are actually making a name for themselves. Like Travis Simpkins. He's a guy up here near Massachusetts. He's doing a ton of portraits. Portrait art is really something special and something that, the craft has seemed to abandon except for very specific Grand Lodges. That's one of the easiest things that I could say people or lodges could start doing. If your lodge has a member who makes it to Grand Master, get an oil portrait of him. He deserves more than $100, certificate of appreciation, which a lot of people do. And I'm extremely biased in that because I'm a portrait artist. And before I continue, I really need to say this. I'm not here to push me. I actually would prefer a lot of people to do other artists besides me so that they can become Masonic artists. But there's something special about a portrait. From an artist's point of view, you take a photograph, and photographs can be extremely extravagant and beautiful and well set up, well lit. But a photograph is that moment. It's a specific moment when you take that photograph, but a portrait is something different. Like a portrait conveys time too. There's time and effort and building and consideration that goes into making an oil painting of someone that a photo just can't do. And it's also got that regality of it as well, where this is something that has some substance to it, and it's a great way to honor someone.
As you're saying that, Ryan, I'm flashing on the portrait of George Washington with Martha and sitting at a table with the globe and the map and the various symbols and it conveys a sense of presence and time and place and looking to the future, and that's the kind of thing that you guys as artists can convey that we as, I don't know, what are we, plebes, can only try to appreciate, and it's hard for us because we're not really trained in it. We're not trained in how to appreciate the work that you do. I think that used to happen, but I don't think it does anymore. And that's an opportunity for the lodge to.
I think art is. So when I do my presentations about Masonic art around the country, one of the things I do is I take 3 paintings and I start it off with it, and I say, let's just look at them. One of the ones that I picked lately it's by John Singer Sargent. I don't know if you can pull it up or not, but it's called Gassed. And it's this massive painting of all of these victims of a mustard gas attack in World War I. And they're all being led blind with each other going towards the hospital tent. So I bring it up and I say, what do you see? And we look at it from a superficial level. Like, what do you physically see in the painting? All right, you see people. You see a battleground. You see tents. Good. All right, let's look at it a little differently. Like, how many people are in it? Why do you think that number's used? And I get people to kind of look at it on a different level. And then I throw in some crazy facts like, all right, what do we think this painting is? So about how horrible war is. Good. Look over here and look in the background. This guy's playing soccer. Okay? Now, all of a sudden, you're looking at that whole painting differently, because what's the whole message of it? Is it the brutality of war, or is it that the brutality of war can be completely forgotten and be misplaced and put aside because that's how horrible wars are? And you could play soccer in the middle of all these victims. And if we can look at our Masonic symbols and our Masonic ritual in the exact same way as that, you're going to train yourself to think like an artist. I'm writing this article right now that it's called I'm a Masonic Artist and You Can Be One Too. And it's really about just looking at things like you're an artist yourself. So to answer your question, I think Masonry trains you how to look at that way. It's just looking at art or looking at movies, or it can be any form of art. If you look at it in that kind of secondary, or I like to call it the initiated eye, you can start to train yourself to think that way, and you're going to get a lot more out of everything that you look at once you get good at it.
At the Historic Smithton Inn of Ephrata, Pennsylvania, we're pleased to serve the latest creations from Weathered Vineyard Winery, along with spirits from Thistlefinch Distillery in Lancaster, all to be experienced in the tasting room of a beautifully restored 18th century bed and breakfast. Cigars by D&S Cigar are available for your enjoyment in the courtyard. The Historic Smithton Inn is convenient to Lancaster County's most interesting attractions. Just minutes from the Ephrata Cloister and the Green Dragon Farmers Market. And a short drive can get you to charming Lidditz, thriving downtown Lancaster, as well as Hershey, Bird in Hand, and Intercourse, or Valley Forge and Gettysburg. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or an active vacation full of sightseeing and attractions, the Historic Smithton Inn will be a welcoming oasis from everyday life, one that you'll want to visit again and again. Stop in and visit at 900 West Main Street in Ephrata, Pennsylvania, or check out our website at historicsmithtoninn.com, or simply call us at 717-733-6094. Just ask for Past Master Dave.
Hey, this is Brother James Diener with Ephrata Lodge 665 in Ephrata, PA. You're listening to the Masonic Lite Podcast.
Ryan, one of the things that I was mentioning earlier was, you can take me and I'm a fun artist, but I'm not a good artist. But what could we do to try and attract artists and actors and creative people into Freemasonry? Because we were talking about Scottish Rite earlier and all of the degrees and the acting, and I just man, if somebody was into acting, they would just thrive here. We do it because nobody else is signing up, and I know I'm a crap actor. But if I don't,
we know that too, Pete.
Right? But
we all know that.
I'll gladly surrender that to a skilled and passionate artist. So, I think there's plenty of artists. Do you have artist friends that are not Masons that you could kind of lure over to the dark side?
Well, yeah. I have friends who are Masons who are artists who don't do Masonic art. And that's completely fine. It's not their thing. It's not what they do. It's not their style. That's cool. First of all, it's extremely easy to attract artists. And again, the presentation I do all over the country, I end it by saying you need to support, you need to acknowledge, and you need to participate. So the first one is easy, acknowledge. Just start talking about this stuff. The reason why there's no Masonic artists, in my opinion, has nothing to do that we got cheap, which we certainly have, but it's not really it. We just don't talk about this stuff anymore. If you want to talk about some Masonic ideals, there is no reason you have to stick just to ritual. If you want to talk about the allegory of the cave in your lodge, you don't have to get up there and read the allegory of the cave and put people to sleep. But hey, if you go down to your friend's house and put on the Matrix and watch it, and then have some cigars, have some scotch, and start talking about what you're seeing, you're using art to portray a very complicated piece of literature in a new way that's more accessible to people. So just by discussing art or bringing that in, or bringing artists into your lodge, it's an easy way to attract them. And one of the things that really bugs me about the craft right now is we have so many things that we talk about. You know, we talk about philosophy, we talk about art, hopefully. We talk about all this stuff. And when we need to hear an expert, what do? Oh, you know, Frank over there will read a couple of books and come do a presentation on it. Great. Good for Frank. He's learning. But why not go to the college down the street and get a professor of philosophy to come in and let him talk? You know, put the lodge at ease, bring him in and have him talk. Or bring an art historian in and have him talk. I mean, people who study art history don't shut up. So, you know, and that does twofold. One, you're bringing in actual expertise into your lodge, and you're hearing things from the source. And two, you're showing these people that there's actually a group of people out there that care about it, which is a big thing.
That's powerful, because that's, you know, at least in my lodge, everybody is kind of lazy, and I mean that from being busy. And when you become master, it's just like you're treading water. Mm-hmm. But if you can plan ahead, I mean, I think that's wonderful to try and get some of these more learned folk in that we could actually learn something from.
Yeah. I mean, I like to say, you know, one of the things I do in that presentation is, you know, I ask the room to raise your hand if you live within 30 minutes of a college. Yeah. And everybody raises their hand. You know, okay, keep your hand up if they have a music department. Keep their hand up if they have an art department. Reach out to them. You want to attract musicians to a lodge, have a high school musician club come in and play Mozart for you.
Now you're just talking about 7 liberal arts. And I mean, come on, really.
Yeah. Fine. Get the artists to come in. Even better. Have them do a mural in your lodge. Tell them what.
My wife's a mathematician. She can talk about geometry.
Right.
That's a perfect example, because we all get up and say, like, oh, geometry, and oh yeah, I get it, geometry, math, you know, corners and stuff. Yeah, have a mathematician come in and tell you how to prove a geometrical theorem, and how much work and thought goes into that, and then you'll understand a little bit more why geometry is a noble science.
Wow, I feel bad being a smartass now. That was
you did it.
It's a perfect example. I couldn't have thought of a better one.
Oh, gee.
We'll move on to logic. Larry Maris.
Oh, gee. Ryan, how do you think, if, you know, people are going to be listening to you today, or when we put the show on next Monday, and then we're going to have John Bridegroom come on in a couple weeks, and there's going to be a lot of interest, because we do have listeners to this show, believe it or not. In a way, you both will be putting out a challenge out there. How will you handle it? And like this seriously could go worldwide. So, are you prepared for that?
And it's multiplanetary at the same time.
Yes.
Hey, we have the statistics to prove people in other countries do listen to us.
So, I think what Larry is asking is how do we put this into action? Right, you're talking about this, and you've put out a couple good examples. Go to the local college and reach out to the art department, and reach out to the I don't know,
music department.
Music, yeah.
But how are you bringing that into your lodge locally?
Am I?
Yeah. Well, you know.
Unfortunately, I'm trying. It's a battle a little bit, and
in what way?
I'm in an awkward position right now, because I'm not in the East anymore, and I'm the person people are bringing in to start this. So,
okay.
Honestly, I've been so busy traveling and painting and stuff like that. That's kind of how I'm doing it. You know, I try to blast Masonic art as much as possible. I try to talk about it as much as possible, give people tips on how to do things. That's kind of the way I'm trying to do it. And, you know, you guys kind of hit the nail on the head with what I'm actually struggling with right now, which is why I was really happy you guys asked me about that, because when I travel around, I've actually had a pretty good track record so far of people actually trying to bring this into their lodges. People have told me, yeah, we hired a quartet to play music outside of our lodge on our open house instead of just doing something. That's awesome. But the fallback is we need Grand Lodges to back this up too. And there's ways that they can do it. There's ways that are done in Europe that we just don't want to do or we'd never thought of doing. The Grand Lodge of England has a resident artist, and they switch them out once in a while. That's something, and any Grand Lodge in this country could easily do. Bring a member of your jurisdiction in, give them $1,000. What's that out of? You have five. I live in a small state where we have like 5,000 Masons or something. That's the pennies per Mason, and have them create something for the Grand Lodge. Just one thing a year or one thing every 2 years. Doesn't matter. Just create. Promote people who are authors. Tell them to write stuff and promote them. There's also my biggest fear and my biggest complaint about Masonry and art is when we talk about art and Masonry, we talk in the past sense. You go to Philadelphia. Look at this wonderful building built in the 1920s. And then we fixed it up for a couple of decades. And then, that was the heyday. Then I go to 10 other Grand Lodges in the state and I see these, in this country, and I see these beautiful buildings and we say, oh, this was built in the 1920s. And we put all this time and effort into it. Now, well, what have you done in the last 50 years? Nothing. We're completely content with saying this happened in the past and we don't do this anymore. I know I was really upset because I didn't know there was a conference of Masonic libraries and museums that was going to happen, and I missed it. And I would have paid my own way to get out there and tell them, stop cataloging and add, because you're feeding that notion that Masons are out of date and that we're no longer relevant, because we're killing all of this stuff that makes us more popular and more presentable to the people of, the public, I should say.
So, John mentioned some folks earlier, and maybe you can as well. Who are some current Masonic artists that you would just throw names out there that we could help promote? And maybe, not even like all classical, like you are with paint. Guys like John that are graphic artists. And there's so many new kinds of art that, I don't know. I just think we have so many cool tools.
Multimedia.
Computerized, with Illustrator, that we can make such cool stuff now.
Well, it's hard. There's a couple of people that have been following and, kind of stalking behind the scenes. There's a guy named Cat Taylor who just did a few murals. I know he's down south. I don't remember where. I believe he's an art teacher too. Amazing paintings, but his murals are like really cool. They're kind of illustrative. So they got that kind of, I don't want to say like pen and ink look that you see there in like graphic novels, but they're massive. They're whole lodges. He did a few murals down south and they're unbelievable. He's on Facebook, Cat Taylor. You got to look at his stuff. He's a lot better than me. There's, I think I mentioned before, Travis Simpkins. He's rocking it with his constant paintings and portraits. Again, I have no idea how the hell he does it that fast. Like the kid is gifted. And there's a couple of guys up in New Hampshire that are starting to come around. I'm hopefully going to be meeting with them. I'd love to form an artist lodge up here and really promote this stuff. But yeah, the problem is that, with the digital stuff like that, we just need people to step it up and say, hey, look at me, I can do this. And then have the reciprocal of that, of saying lodges go, okay, do it. How can we help? Because I'm willing to bet there's thousands of us out there that just haven't been given the chance to do this. The only reason The only reason I'm a Masonic artist is because someone was going to put some fake stained glass windows in our lodge temple room, and they went cheap and they went boring. And a friend of mine said, maybe you should talk to him before you do this. And I took over the project. I did these windows for Nashua, the Nashua Masonic Temple, and there I was. That started me. And it was crazy because, I did them so quickly. It wasn't something. I spent a month designing them, and when someone got word of it, an article was written on me. It just exploded. I was getting calls from and Facebook messages from all over the country and outside the country, and people were saying, like, I didn't know this stuff existed. How long you've been doing this? And my initial reaction was, thank you, but this has existed. We just don't do it anymore. And it was both amazing and upsetting that one piece of art could be thought of so amazing, but at the same time so foreign to Freemasonry at the same time, when there's no excuse that it ever should have gotten that way. The one Grand Lodge that really steps up and has done stuff is Pennsylvania. I mean, they're consistently adding. I remember when they did obviously they did the Friend to Friend Memorial, and that symbol of art. Every Freemason in America knows that sculpture, and it unifies us. It speaks volumes to what we stand for. And then I remember maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, I'm probably wrong. They commissioned a painting of it to go in Grand Lodge. It's a gravure, not gravure. I can't think of it. Grayscale painting, and it made the paper in Philly. And I remember distinctly reading it because he's talking about why he did it at the end. And at the bottom of it, he goes, "Oh yeah, and I joined because this seems pretty cool." And there we go. That's how you get Masons.
So. Just so you know, when we remodeled our fellowship hall in Ephrata Lodge, we put a couple of your works on the wall,
cool.
and we appreciate that very much. But
I do.
The point of it is and I got up, I put the microphone down, and I went over to the board and I wrote "create," and that's what is happening. Less now, but more, right? It's growing. The idea of creating. We're always looking backwards at what did other people create in the past.
But Jack, there's some of us this isn't exactly art, but we're creating. The guys,
yes.
the round table, the podcast. There's lots of new media
right.
that people are doing.
Right, and that's what is going to drive us forward into the future. That's what. And Ryan even said it earlier, after World War II, the fraternity was what it needed to be. And now it's becoming something else that it needs to become now. And it's this creative aspect that we've missed for so long. One of my favorite shows on PBS was the little old lady nun that used to do artwork that she would go into the old and she would point out to the old masters and say, okay, the fact that there's a white rose in this painting means this, and the fact that these flowers are this means this, and we don't have that sort of training anymore.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, that's her.
Sister Wendy.
Sister Wendy. I loved her. Loved her so much because it was such a level of depth that, God, where am I going to get that? I'm never going to get that, right?
Well, the funny thing about especially Masonic art and Masonic knowledge, I guess you could say, is, people consider me, knowledgeable in the craft. I think I am. I'm not by any means an expert in anything in the craft, but I can honestly say that 80% of what I've learned has nothing to do with reading books. It's about traveling. That's how I've learned about the craft, is getting out there, going to symposiums, listening to people, going into parking lots with guys who are much smarter than me and asking questions. And that's the same way with the same approach to masonry with that can be done with art as well. The hardest thing to train someone to do, I think, is to look at something symbolically. A lot of Masons take it for granted that we can look at a square and say, oh, that's not just something that measures right angles. It means something much more complex. That step is not easy for a lot of people to think conceptually. And there's certain works of art that are easier to kind of see what that is. And a lot of times the more familiar you are with the art, the more you can kind of take it to the next level. There was this wonderful art historian who took a picture of Guernica, which I'm sure you guys I hope you guys have all heard of it. It's a gigantic mural by Pablo Picasso. It's black and white, and it tells the story of when the Germans bombed this town, Guernica. He brought it up and he put it in a subway, and he would ask people walking by, what do you think about this? And it's very abstract, it's full cubist, and he would get these amazing answers, but then he would ask people to look at it in their own way. I remember a person with a drum walked by, and he said, drum a beat that this makes you feel. And he came up with this little beat, and he said, why are you drumming it like that? And he gave this amazingly philosophical answer just because he's looked at this painting for the first time. So again, that's why I keep promoting bringing art into your lodge, because it helps you guys look at things on a more conceptual level. And training yourself to do that makes you a better Mason, because all of a sudden you're going to look at your ritual and realize that this isn't just about building stones and walking up a staircase, which again is a very hard step for some people to make. So yeah,
perfect.
I'm preaching to the choir here.
So Ryan, thank you so much for being with us. And hey, we actually kept you on 2 times the legal limit. We made it to 40 minutes.
Oh, jeez.
I don't shut up.
No, I mean that means we like it.
Yeah.
If our listeners want to see your art, or a lodge wants to try and commission a piece, what's the best way for them to track you down on the interwebs?
The best way is, oddly enough, my Facebook page. I have an artist page. It just says Ryan J. Flynn Studios. I'm always on that, kind of showing how I do stuff. Yes, you
are.
Yeah, well, oddly enough, one of the reasons I did that is I finished a painting and a guy said, I'll give you $50 for it. I said, all right, that's 36 cents an hour. And I knew he was asking other people that. So I do this because I don't want artists to be cheated or undervalued for how much work goes into some of that stuff. So that's kind of why I do it. It's self-marketing as well too, but there's a lot of time and effort and pain and crap load of scotch that goes into one of my paintings. So you can find me on there. That's where I'm most active. I also have my website, ryanjflynn.com. And if you guys just, if anybody just needs some advice or some ideas on how to get this into your lodge, or if you really want to make me happy, we could talk about how to bug the crap out of your Grand Lodge until they recognize that the art still exists. I would love to help you with that. So
awesome.
Awesome.
All right, Ryan, thank you for being with us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Great seeing you guys again.
Thanks for being with us, Ryan.
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 Oh, my God.
Good Lord.
I'm going to go paint and drink.
Hey, Jack, that is a sharp-looking shirt you got there. Where did you get it?
Oh, you like that, eh?
I do.
I got it at the Masonic Marketplace.
What is that?
Well, that's an online store for the Scottish Rite Northern Masonic jurisdiction. They got all kinds of great shirts and ties and gifts and stuff, and they'll ship it right to your house, Tim.
Awesome. Where do I find them?
Well, you can find them on the interwebs at www.themasonicmarketplace.com. And welcome back. You've been listening to an interview that we previously recorded with Ryan Flynn. You'll notice that Pete was with us when we recorded that, and we actually flew him back up from his vacation so he could be with us for like that interview, and then
exiled him back to Mexico.
Yeah, now he's exiled again. So anyway, this brief series, if we can call 2 episodes a series of involving Masonic art, I think is huge because it's something that it's missing. I listened to the John Bridegroom episode again, and he talks about, when I saw these old patents that were hand drawn and stuff like that really sort of gave you a feeling about the fraternity, and now you're getting something that's printed off a dot matrix printer or whatever, and I think I'd really love to see that sort of commitment to the artistic aspect, the artistic expression of the principles of Freemasonry. I'm just looking forward to that.
And it's such an important part of our past and our history that, and it's part of what made Freemasonry what it is today. I think we do a disservice to the fraternity to not go back there. It
is. And when we redid Steffi Hall here at Lodge 665, we actually put some of Ryan's work on the walls here. There's a 3-panel set that he put up talking about geometry and the Saints John and a couple of other aspects that's there. It's funny because people don't notice it until you point it out, and then they go, "Oh, that's really cool." So a lot of time that Masonic art gets overlooked. So we're happy to shine a spotlight on it. And Ryan, thank you for being with us for that interview. And we look forward to more Masonic art from you and others like you in the future. So I think we're going to take a brief pause for the cause and talk to a couple of our special guests.
Unlocking Symbols with Symbologist Michelle Snyder.
King Midas Unlocked. Fairy tales, legends, and folklore hold many secrets of times long past. King Midas of the Golden Touch is the story of a greedy king who begged a fairy to give him the ability to turn everything into gold by touching it. This, of course, was a very bad idea, as everything included his food and eventually his daughter. Soon he begged to be released from his affliction and was told to go rinse his hands in a river to wash away the curse. When he did so, everything was restored, including his golden daughter. Today, this tale is told to teach the consequence of greed and the change in values it takes to cure it. To use our golden key on this tale, we must look at the process of electrolytes. Batteries work on this science, a lower element changing into a higher one, for example, tin into silver. As this process takes place, energy is produced. There must be a proper medium between the 2 elements, and so your car battery needs water. It has been known for a long time that if you can find a stream of water flowing past a gold factory that dumps its production waste into the water, and you put a tin cup in it downstream, your tin cup will soon turn into electrolyte gold. The instruction for Midas to rinse his golden hands in the water of a river alludes to the electrolyte process. Another part of our golden key is history. Midas was said to be an excessively greedy king. This story is based on a real king who lived at a time when gem merchants traveled the land. They were very good at swindling their customers, and the king was angry about it. His wife, the queen, thwarted them by inventing coins. The coins provided a standard with which to weigh the precious gems, and the merchants could no longer swindle the king. They were so angry, they spread rumors about his greed. Stories and symbols are layered through time, like the process of palimpsest, where ink is scraped off an older papyrus and new writing put on, yet shadows of the old ink remain. King Midas is said to have a daughter whom he turned into gold in his greed, but the real King Midas on which this story is based did not have a daughter. Some not-so-pleasant history must be uncovered to see this layer. There was a time when young children, as young as 5, were used in mining. They were smaller and could get into the tighter tunnels. Many died in this process. Once in a while a mine would flood with water, and on at least one occasion the water was laden with gold powder. Centuries later, during excavation of a wall, a young girl was discovered. She was perfect in every detail. Her eyelashes, hair, and clothes, as well as the little basket she held, were preserved as electrolyte gold. This sensational discovery was added to the legend about the greedy king with the golden touch. For more oral tradition unlocked, read Symbology, Fairy Tales Uncovered. Next time, we will talk about magical, mysterious cats.
If you'd like to take a deeper look, be sure to check out Michelle's book, Symbology Revision. A link for purchase can be found on the Freya Foundation website. That's freafoundation.net. While you're there, take a look at some of Michelle's other works and find out more about the Freya Foundation and its mission to research and publish the Ensman archives.
Dues time is a great time for lodges and all Masonic bodies to update their data. One of the worst pieces of data we don't have is information on our members' spouses. And for those that we do, many are outdated due to the death of spouses, remarriages, etc. So a simple thing to do is when you notify your members that they owe dues, have them update their contact information and the spouse's name. It will save you from having to do this once the member passes, and it becomes rather inconvenient.
In Masonic news today, officials of the Grand Lodge of Quintana Roo, Mexico, have announced the appointment of Abner Hockenfuss as Worshipful Master of Bartenders Lodge number 420 in Playa del Carmen. When asked for comment, Brother Hockenfuss replied, This is really a huge honor, everybody. A festive board was held to commemorate the event, featuring an olive loaf and scrapple buffet. Masonic Lite Podcast wishes the new master a hearty congratulations and reminds our brother that ice cubes are made of water. That's the Masonic news. So mote it was.
It's time for the Lodge Business Brief with Brother Jim Stevens.
Well, again, Masonic Lite Podcast listeners, this is Jim Stevens with another Lodge Business Brief. The idea of documenting your lodge's processes probably ranks up there with pulling the weeds from the front walk or going to the DMV. But like those two examples, you still need to do it. Documenting the process does not need to be extensive to have value. A few bullet points will go a long way in helping improve the lodge's operations. These bullet point lists can then be used to train the next brother who needs to do something. They can also be used to share best practices between lodge and also provide templates to make future work less time intensive. But the greatest value comes from developing the list themselves. You'll be surprised how many different opinions exist as to how something should be done. They may all be right, but they can't all be done. The lodge will need to settle on one type of process and repeat it to gain any type of efficiency. It is also likely that while developing the list, you will find holes and problems that need to be resolved. Lastly, having published processes will reduce arguments. How many times have you sat in lodge listening to a brother say, "We need to do it this way," and you're thinking to yourself, "No, that's not how it's done." Have that conversation while preparing the list, not while in an open lodge. Once created, these lists should not be shelved or forgotten. They should be lived and revisited. Don't let a process live for years unchecked. Every 3 to 5 years, make sure that someone reviews them to make sure they're still current. Nothing is more confusing to a new officer than to be told their duties are all documented, but it is clear the document is wrong. Also note that this documentation should include at least one master copy of all accounts and passwords used by any officer of the lodge. You don't want to be locked out of your accounting software because the treasurer is on a 3-week safari and out of contact. Keep this list up to date and secured, with limited access. Keep them in separate files. For example, keep one copy in the lodge safe and one at home with the worshipful master. That way, if there is a problem in one location, another copy still exists. Additional ideas on improving lodge operations can be found in my book, Lodge Business, the theoretical application of entrepreneurial business practices to Blue Lodge, available on Amazon. This is Jim Stevens with your Lodge Business Brief.
And we're back.
Hello.
Yes. So, Jack, why don't you tell us about what's coming up in the Masonic world around here in the next few days and weeks?
I'll read all this junk off of your fabulous iPad here. So forgive me if it sounds like I'm reading, because I'm reading this. Saturday, October 19th at the Valley of Reading, Pennsylvania. See the world-famous magician Lance Burton and friends. Now, this is really a Vegas level show. So we've talked about this before. This is a fantastic magic show. If you're at all interested in seeing a really good quality show, Lance Burton is amazing. Adults are $40, children $25. For tickets, visit the Valley of Reading office, or, because you're not going to do that, visit eventbrite.com, and in the search box, just type in Lance Burton, Burton. And all the proceeds go to benefit the Dyslexic Center of Reading. This is the Scottish Rite Dyslexia Learning Center that the Valley of Reading supports. Next, if you wish to join the Scottish Rite, or if you're already a member and want to come back for a reunion, visit ScottishRiteNMJ.org to find out about the dates for reunions in your area. The local to Masonic Light podcast is the Valley of Lancaster. Their next meeting is Tuesday, October the 15th. By the time you hear this, it will probably be done. The Valley of Reading will be Saturday, November 16th, and the Grand Valley of Harrisburg. Oh, please. Oh, I'm so sorry. The Grand Valley of Harrisburg is Friday and Saturday, November 15 and 16. So if you're involved in the Scottish Rite, please feel free to find out where you can go and participate in the Scottish Rite programs there. The Pennsylvania Academy of Masonic Knowledge, one of my favorite scholarly things to do, is going to be held Saturday, October the 26th, in Elizabethtown at the Masonic Villages in the the Cultural Center?
The auditorium,
the big auditoriums up there. It's fantastic. There are always really interesting speakers at the Academy of Masonic Knowledge. I believe they'll be live streaming it again this year, but I'm not sure what the address is going. Oh, it's going to be.
It's right there.
I'm sorry.
Just read it.
Or you can watch the live stream. Here I go ad-libbing and whatnot. Live streamed at PAMasonicacademy.org. And let's see what else. So that would be Saturday the 26th, and Sunday, October the 27th, we go from the sublime to the ridiculous.
God bless our souls.
And that is our Halloweeny ceremonial for Ubar Grotto. So if you are a Master Mason in the central Pennsylvania area and would like to find out how you can become a ridiculous prophet of the enchanted realm, like our producer Josh Lamberton is going to be at the next ceremonial, we will be happy to collect your money and show you a good time. If you are a Master Mason and want to join the grotto, reach out to Monarch Jack Harley. That guy's a real jerk.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Send him a message at masoniclightpodcast@gmail.com. And someone will forward that to me because I don't have access to that email account. And you've heard us talk about it. Grotto is just a silly place, kind of like Camelot.
Seriously, though, it's a place where Masons can come and have a good time.
Come and have a good time, relax.
We support a great charity, but it's a good time.
Yeah, we do.
And we eat a lot, and we drink a little.
And we do. And that's all there is on Tim's magic iPad. And now we Wait, Larry's waving at me. Do you have to
Larry's
pee
got
again, Larry?
something.
Larry hasn't peed the entire episode so far.
I have a plug.
Larry's.
Right.
I'm going to talk about the Tall Cedars of York County hosting the Grand Tall Ball at the York Country Club November the 16th.
Oh, awesome.
Now, this is a gala event. If you're Tall Cedars, I think the cost is $25 per person.
Yes, sir.
And it's a big band. It's a 26-piece big band that plays. They have professional singers. The orchestra is out of this world. The food is out of this world. And it really is good. And I'll tell you what, they have a dance floor. They have some professional dancers come in and do the dance. And it's swinging, man. It's just unreal.
Groovy, baby.
Look it up on Facebook. Just go to the Tall Cedars of York. You'll get the information in there. But please come. It is a well-attended event, and it is probably one of the best Masonic functions I have ever gone to.
Larry,
Great.
You really need to be more excited about this event.
Okay.
Exactly.
I'm
Wow.
sorry.
Larry Maris will be there, and we'll sign autographs.
Larry
All
Maris
right,
will be
there
there.
you go.
And hopefully
All right.
uninjured at the time.
Exactly.
So
Anything else for the good of the order, guys? If not, Josh, cue the chickens, and Larry, have at it. He had one job.
One job. Was he ready? No. He had 30 minutes to get this ready.
Special thanks to Effort Lodge 665 for making this broadcast studio possible. Our thanks to Josh Lamberton, producer and director, who continues to make the show listenable. And thanks to Jack Harley, our news director, and Tim Dedman, our marketing director.
Darn right.
And to Masonic Light podcast contributors Michelle Snyder and Jim Stevens. And also special thanks to our new program coordinator, Les Witt. And finally, to our new office bookkeeper.
Les Witt. Get it? Wait. No, Les Witt. Les Witt. Yeah. Okay. All right.
And finally, to our new office bookkeeper, Red Marks Man. Red Marks on bookkeeping is bad news. Okay,
Josh,
I should have explained that.
Hand me the taser.
This is Larry Maris, and thanks for listening.
This is Josh.
And Jack Harley.
And this is Tim Dedman saying good night, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
You know, I wrote this stuff in the doctor's office this afternoon, and it is hard to write these things.
Were you anesthetized at the time?